Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? I've been wondering for a little while, and maybe you've been wondering too, why the sudden shift in what I'm thinking about and talking about to subjects like escaping wage slavery and seeing the world for what it is, and inequality, and living authentically, and living beyond the 9 to 5, and all those kind of things. And to be honest, this isn't something that happened suddenly. The seeds for this were planted a long time ago, and it's just been festering and kind of coming to fruition now. And the seeds were actually planted back in my teen years where I had this brief and kind of cringeworthy brush and affiliation with Amway. And while there were parts of it that were not a very good experience at all, I did walk away with one big takeaway, and that was this idea that most people are kind of trapped without even realizing it in this 40-year plan where they're going to put aside their goals, their dreams, the things that they really want, and have this carrot of retirement dangled in front of them. And so they're going to put all these other things to the side, not really live authentically, and grind away for the hope of this eventual reward, if in fact it actually comes. And I started realizing if I wanted to live the life I really wanted to, you know, doing something for myself was probably going to be the best option. And this idea just kind of stayed dormant in the background. Because to be honest, I never saw myself as an entrepreneur. In fact, I would tell people I'm not cut out to be a proprietor. I'm not, not cut out for that. I don't have the guts. And to be honest, I always kind of saw myself as somebody that would be great at being second in command, the dependable manager or strategist or architect, and making what the visionary wanted to come true. I'm good at that kind of stuff. But things like marketing and sales, kind of made my skin crawl, especially sales. And if you want to have a business, even a side hustle, you've got to be good at those things and you have to engage in those things. And it just didn't seem like it was going to be me. So I worked at jobs for a long, long time, and I've been at the job I am now for 4 years. And if you watch the channel religiously, you should. You know that I really don't like it. It's a bad fit. It's a convenient job. It's 8 to 4 nominally, Monday through Friday. It allows me to do a lot of other things. Doesn't pay an awful lot, but that it comes with a company car, which I include in the not an awful lot. So it's a convenient job, but it's one of those jobs that's a bad fit. The product, some of the things that we end up making or helping people make don't align with my values. I really don't care about what we're doing. It's just kind of slowly soul sucking, and the work is kind of, you know, beneath my ability, not beneath me, but just below my capabilities. And, I'm just felt like I was kind of slowly eroding in this job. But it's been my history and my experience that whenever I look at job listings, it's been, I feel sick. And, really, it's not just metaphorically, like physically sick, because I see job after job after job. I'm not sure if you can relate to this, where I'm reminded that I'm not qualified for this or that job because there's something that, I lack in terms of this degree or that degree or this level of experience. Jobs that I look at and say, well, I could do that though, but I just don't qualify for it. And it's very easy to start thinking that the only thing I'm really capable of or the only thing I'm really worthy of is mindless labor. And I know that's not true. I'm creative, I'm intelligent, I can solve problems, but it just felt really stifling. And, that anxiety that was produced by looking at other jobs is so acute that I end up like shutting the laptop and like, I can't do this. This is too stressful. And I need to lay down for a second, you know, but I'm not sure what really got me kicked back up again. Maybe it was just the rising tide of equality in the country in general, which is becoming more and more apparent. And part of it was just the YouTube algorithm, which that's for whatever reason started putting videos in front of me where I started watching channels by people that were exposing the system, if you will, for what it is. And, just kind of illuminate this structure of what's really going on in corporate America and political America. And listen, I am not a conspiracy theorist. I'm the anti-conspiracy theorist. I'm the person that mocks them. And I understand that the human brain is wired to see patterns. This is this excellent survival strategy, but it's terrible for detecting, false information or for not creating, if you will, like false associations is probably a better way to say it. And, we come up with these conspiracy theories. And next thing you know, we're seeing that there's lizard people running the Fed or whoever it might be. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the power and the incentives that kind of run everything and just how much the game is rigged. And how the education system wasn't designed to foster thinking or actually for education, but was designed to produce productive and obedient workers. That quote by Rockefeller: "I don't want a nation of thinkers, I want a nation of workers." And to see that this is actually kind of designed was heartbreaking and sickening, especially realizing that I'd been a part of that. I'd been a product of that and didn't even realize it because I didn't believe some of the conspiracies that people are talking about. Turned out some of them weren't conspiracies. And it's one of those things, like, once you see the matrix, once you see those green strings of numbers, you can't really unsee them anymore. And it makes it makes me like sick to my stomach. Like, it was just intolerable. I don't want to be a part of this. And not only did I not like my life, my job, uh, the parts of my life that are great. But not only did I not like my job, not only did I not see a way out of that in terms of going to another job that I liked, but just the whole system. It didn't seem, it just seemed like this is not the way I want to be. And I didn't want my life to be pre-decided. I didn't, want to not have a say in what I was doing. I wanted to choose my own goals, not have them assigned to me. And, even with the incredible fear of and the anxiety, just even contemplating the idea of being an entrepreneur, they just seem to be a little bit brighter, or a better end than being a cog in somebody else's machine, which a lot of us are, whether we know it or not, whether we really think about it a lot or not. And that's not a fun place to be in. And I don't believe that I would have ever really even considered the shift. I think I would have remained just content looking at jobs and maybe, that I might be a better fit for me if it wasn't for the modern internet economy. And I just wasn't as aware. Started looking into things and realizing, like, people could run online businesses and just use like platforms like YouTube as a launch pad. Those were kind of revolutionary. I just, it was one of those things like, oh yeah, I could do something like that. And it didn't, not like I thought it was easy, but just realizing it was possible and there were other people doing it was something that became, appealing to me. I don't know if this has ever occurred to you. I don't know what your way out would be, or what, I can't even tell you what your way out would be if you even want a way out. But it just seemed like, what, I think I might be able to do something like this. And especially because YouTube is something I enjoy. I'm actually good at it. It's not like I have a huge following, but I enjoy making the videos, and I don't think I'm bad at making the videos. It's been a passion for a long, long time. And, I've also kind of doubled down on music, played a lot more gigs, but this is something where it's going to bring in some money, but I'm not going to make my living doing it. Not unless somebody discovers me and say, we want you to be the next bass player for, whatever band it is. That ship has kind of sailed. And the friends I know that make their living doing music, well, they're teaching. And, that requires reading music and being really good at that, which is something that I'm not very good at. But I do it because I enjoy it. But that's not going to be my ticket out. And RPGs are another love. And of course, that's what this channel was based on in the beginning. But, even if I start writing RPGs, I'm not going to make my living doing that. There very few people do that. And certainly very few people get rich. And I could really have this channel that was with a lot of emphasis on what's the popular trends in RPGs right now, and compete with those talking heads. But it would be fake and sterile because I'd be talking about things that I just don't care about. The RPGs I tend to care about don't have as much traction with the general public, and the things I like to think about and talk about are a little more esoteric, which is fine. I'd rather talk about what I authentically enjoy, and so I wouldn't want to pour my energy into, like, let me see if I can make my living talking about RPGs when I'd have to do things that I just didn't care about and pretending to care. That would be awful. But what if, the question I keep asking myself, or ask myself, what if I could do something unconventional? Something honest, something that, because I see other people, offering other people real value, and something that helps people, and it's free from the grind of doing meaningless work day after day. They're able to share something of themselves with other people and actually make a living doing that. And so for me, the ability to go in that direction, wherever it actually leads me, where I could not work my job, maybe even where my girlfriend Susan, didn't have to work, because after all, like, time together is part of the goal, right? It's one of those things that I'm looking at and saying, well, geez, I think I'd like to try to do that. And doing things because I want to do them, because they're genuinely helpful for other people. And the more I thought about this, the more I looked around and I realized, well, there's all of you, there's all these other people out there that have kind of bought into the same lie, have been programmed by the same system. They're in the same trap. And maybe they don't want to start businesses. Heck, I don't even really want to start a business. But, when they want to start a business, that's fine. But, the idea that life is passing us by, and don't do that. Don't just chase obligations, chase your passions as well. Don't do what you think you should. Do what you love, or at least do part of that. That kind of message to me is really important, because I watch so many people just kind of going through life and not really participating in it, which is tragic. I find it tragic for myself, and I find it tragic for other people. And, I've seen how things like addiction can steal a life. I mean, I've lived it, and I've gotten beyond that. And so I've experienced in making a profound change in my life. And I've seen how it steals a life of other people. I've seen how other people get out of it, which is fantastic. And I see how people stay in it and eventually die. And that is unbelievably tragic. And, while it's not as dire, there's still a captivity in economic stress, in emotional resignation, the slow erosion of possibility. And that's, the longer I stayed clean, the longer I changed my life, the more I realized I don't want to be a part of that either, you know. And if I could escape that, if I could help at least one other person escape that through content, through conversation, through some kind of connection, that would be meaningful. That would be meaningful work. And there's this kind of uncomfortable truth that I started to come to terms with, and that is, if I wanted to escape the yoke of the wealthy, I might have to become one of them. Not in the case of, if you can't beat them, join them, but at least make more, to become a little a little affluent, to the point, and I just mean to the point where money wasn't a constant terror, and that I had the money to do the things that I wanted to do, just to buy enough freedom, because it's not the money I care about. Screw that. It's the freedom. It's the ability to enjoy life, to pursue passions. It's the ability of other people to be able to do that, because it is all well and good for me to tell you, don't just do the things that you should do or you think you should do. Go live your passions. Well, you've got to be able to fund that somehow. I don't know what the answer is for everybody. I wish I did, because then I would tell you. And if I was, or I'd sell it to you and be a gazillionaire. That's terrible. You know what I mean? But, life is too beautiful to be a cog in somebody else's machine, and to do, what they tell you to do. Having the keys to your own cage is a gift beyond measure. And that's what I'm struggling for, is the keys to my own cage. The one I've unlocked myself from the cage of addiction. I've unlocked myself from the cage of toxic relationships. But looking further, what other cages am I in? What other cages are you in? Do you want the key to that cage? And we're told over and over again, we're supposed to be productive and useful and obedient, and that we have to earn a life that we enjoy at the very end, and that we have to prove our worth by enduring misery for vast periods of time. And I don't think that's true. When you follow that lie to its source, you always find the same thing. There's somebody profiting from your surrender of your life. And, you keep voluntarily giving your life over to them. And that's not cool, And that's why I'm standing on this soapbox and talking about these things. Not only for myself, but there's other people that are trapped in that same cage, that could follow that thread back to somebody that's profiting off of the life that they're giving up. And that's something that makes me angry, and something that I feel is worth talking about. What about you?